Oh, wow. That was, wow. They just flooded in the door. You open the door, it's like when you're giving out free chicken.
The beauty of the Zoom waiting room.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Thanks for joining. We're just letting everybody in. We'll get started in just a moment. All right, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. On behalf of United Way of King County, welcome to Fighting Food Insecurity, a virtual volunteer event. I'm Alexia Klatt, Community and Volunteer Engagement Manager at United Way. I use she, her pronouns, and I have the privilege of helping to plan and organize United Way of King County's observance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service every year. As an organization, we're committed to centering community in our volunteer engagement efforts. And a key part of that has become how we've made MLK Day of Service into a springboard for service and connection beyond that one day. So this event is really part of that effort. We're super excited to have you all with us today to learn more about the various volunteer roles that help fight food insecurity in our community. So just a couple housekeeping notes. If you can be sure to stay on mute. Questions can go in the chat and we'll do our best to respond either there or aloud. We'll also have some time for questions at the end. Please note that the session is being recorded and closed captioning can be turned on with the little CC button that you should see at the bottom of the screen. So with that, I am delighted to hand it over to Erica Zingare, Food Security Impact Manager at United Way of King County. Erica oversees our community food work, which encompasses community grant making and our home grocery delivery program. Thanks, Erica.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much, Alexia. I am so excited about our panel today and looking forward to the conversation that we'll have with the panelists, as well as you all, if you have any questions at the end of our panel session. So please join me in welcoming our panelists. We have Amir Sulkin from East African Community Services. Great, I got that one correct. And then we have Jefferson Rose from White Center Food Bank and Srijan Chakraborty from Hunger Intervention Program. Thank you all for joining me. Dr. King believed in the beloved community, a community in which everyone is cared for, absent of poverty, hunger, and hate. These organizations, in partnership with United Way, contribute to that beloved community. So let's dive in and learn more about the organizations. So starting with the first question. Oh, please tell us about your programs, the neighbors you serve, and how volunteers support that work. And I'll start it off with Amir.
So thank you so much. I'm unsurprised. This won't be a shock to anybody in the room. Let me pause here. My name is Amir Sulkin, Development Director at East African Community Development and Communications Manager at East African Community Services. My pronouns are he and him. And so East African Community Services is as a matter of practice, serves East African refugee and immigrant youth and their families. We've been here for 21 years. We have centers in South Seattle in the New Holly neighborhood and in SeaTac, Washington, two community centers. And so the pandemic has naturally created a real disaster of a need, frankly, in terms of food insecurity in our communities. And we, at the beginning of the pandemic, we created the COVID-19 Rapid Response Fund, which was a fundraising bucket to just fund everything related to community supports. From that moment, we've iterated it into our Engagement and Family Resources Department, a full-fledged department. And we got funding from United Way King County and others to provide food sustainability. We created the diaper baby supplies and food drive. and they went absolutely bonkers, and we run out of money. We always run out of money, then we get more money. King County, United Way, King County has been really great. But for us, it really has been just creating opportunities for culturally appropriate food for a overwhelmingly Muslim population, Eastern Orthodox Ethiopian population. And that's what we're doing. And let me just make sure I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry. Can I have that question one more time? Can I have that question one more time?
Sure, no worries. I was on mute, just talking away. So the question is, what do you tell us more about how volunteers support the work that you talked about?
Right. So we have shifted to home delivery, a home delivery model, which is something can be talked about at a later time. The logistical challenges have emerged with DoorDash delivering to people who have so many of the same names. But the volunteer component is absolutely critical in terms of the massive amount of food and supplies that have, in terms of coordinating team members to get the bags and boxes together. It is, as you can imagine, a daunting task when you're serving hundreds of families. And so really helping to take an inordinate amount of stress off of our core teams who are doing other programs and services that for the families. Really, the volunteers step up to help us to do the impossible, which is to this incredible amount of work for families who are really need this and deserve these kinds of supports. And so I cannot express to you how the human power, how important the human power is in terms of supporting this work. And I will pause it there.
Thank you so much. And Jefferson, let's go to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jefferson Rose, the Development and Communications Director for the White Center Food Bank. Really want to thank United Way for this opportunity to be here with all of you today, and for the United Way's continued support over the years. Really vital to our success to keeping the community fed. We've got a bunch of programs, and they're all volunteer supported. So we operate a food bank 4 days a week here on site, and then we do mobile home delivery. We also have a baby pantry that for what we call our youngest customers. We do kind of satellite food banks, which is something that came out of the COVID pandemic. Some of it we've been doing it for years, but we've had to pivot a little bit and expand because we really want to meet people where they're at. So that's at a local elementary school, White Center Heights Elementary, South Seattle College. Actually, United Way just supported us for the Hunger Free campuses.
5 minutes. I have to finish.
I'm hearing somebody
Or I'll forget.
else.
Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. And 3 senior housing sites that we bring food to for pantries there. And then we're CMAR Community Health Centers. We've got pantries set up at 3 different CMAR Community Health Centers as well. So really trying to get the food out to the people. And, it would be easy to say we couldn't do this work without our volunteers. That is true. I think the unique thing about our culture here at the White Center Food Bank is how the volunteers have really taken on we want to make this feel like people are at home when they come. We speak 9 languages at our front desk, and many of our volunteers are also multilingual. We would love more of that, of course, but I want to just read a quote from one of our Vietnamese volunteers, translated in English, but this is their own words, not just mine. They said, "Whenever I need help, volunteers are always there for me, and others, when they help in joyful, pleasant way, are not mad or unhappy. They're also very watchful. For example, they make sure that if I didn't get something like eggs, they get it for me." So that's the culture we want to create in terms of a volunteer experience too, that this is a family here, and we welcome in our customers and our volunteers similarly. This is something that we just want it to feel like home, and that's what we really focus on.
Great, thank you so much for that. 9 languages, wow. That is exciting. And last but certainly not least, Sri John, please tell us about Hunger Intervention Program.
Hello again. Thank you again for inviting me, and it's good to see so many people. I'll echo everyone's comment about United Way support. I think it's been a wonderful partner in many different ways. In terms of Hunger Intervention Program, we are primarily based in the North Seattle shoreline area, and we serve North Seattle shoreline, that's that region. And I mean, often for people who are not often used to different languages or food bank and meal programs, I often tell them like food banks like where Jefferson is from is more like a grocery store, and we are more like a meal program, which is like a restaurant. So we serve meals that are ready to eat for the most part. So that is our meal program. So we serve, we have multiple meal programs. We have meals for seniors, for kids, and for people experiencing homelessness. So one of the program is, for example, senior meals. That we have one that is like a multicultural, where we have partnership with CMAR, community health centers, and also Chinese information and services centers to bring in different populations groups with support in the meal program. We also have one that is specifically for East African with elders, which is in partnership with Sound Generations, and again that is specifically meant for East African elders. So again, so we have different meal programs, and we serve meals at a shelter. And during the summer, United Way's help, we do a meal program for seniors, like which is a summer meal program. Let's say about 10 to 14 different locations depending on the year. And all of that, like in terms of volunteer help, obviously, like we are a fairly small organizations compared to many others. We only have few people on staff. So all of that work is only possible because of volunteers, and literally it needs many hands and hearts to make all of those meals possible and serve, right? So that's definitely there. And other thing I also wanted to say, volunteers help not just the meals part, which is like more the front facing work, like preparing and actually doing the meals. We also actually do lots of cooking and nutrition education classes. So we do cooking classes with volunteers, also help with those. And then also volunteers help at the back end in terms of office help. We have one person, we have an amazing volunteer who is almost like an on-call volunteer for our van help. Like we have van maintenance, we need oil change, we'll call this volunteer, say, hey, this van needs to go to for an oil change. It's an amazing like community of support who help in different ways. Some people help with IT stuff or website stuff because we don't have a dedicated IT person. So yeah, so basically like volunteers help in so many different ways. One is like the front facing, but also in the back end area. But our main work is serving people meals, culturally appropriate meals and food in a way that's where they need it.
Great. Thank you so much for this wealth of information that you shared with everyone here on the call. And for our audience members, if any questions come up, just want to reiterate what Alexia mentioned in the beginning, please do put your questions in the chat and we will answer those questions at the end of the session today. And so the next question, because we want volunteers to know more about the communities that you all serve, what do you wish they knew about those neighbors that you are serving and the communities, and how can they make the most impact as a volunteer? And feel free, I'll take two folks to share, or if everyone wants to jump in and to share. Okay, Jefferson, please.
Yeah, I think there's a big misconception about food insecurity, that it's, folks experiencing homelessness or the unhoused community, or and that's true, that those folks need to eat too. But I would say probably 80% of the people that come through our door are working families or seniors. About a third of who we serve are seniors that are on Social Security, and it's just not enough. So I think that for me is one of the biggest misconceptions when people think about food banks. And we're here in South King County and White Center, unincorporated King County, one of the most underserved areas in terms of the state. And a majority of our folks are Latinx or Vietnamese, Cambodian, Chinese, and so we have it's a pretty big mix of folks, but we in fact one of the things we really focus on is as Amir mentioned and Srijan as well, on culturally appropriate, culturally familiar foods, and we really focus on produce. So we ask our customers, what do you see, or what don't you see on your table that you're missing from your country, or that either is unaffordable or you're not seeing at the grocery store. We have a garden. We grow our own produce too. Our Grow to Give garden, where, again, we ask our customers, hey, what are you not seeing? And we order those seeds. And sometimes we've grown things we've never seen before, but just that people are requesting because they're too expensive or they're just not available. So, and those are volunteer opportunities as well that folks can work in our garden and support that. So yeah, it's super diverse, it's super dynamic and fun, and we have just a really, I guess the main thing is kind of the stigma about who are the customers that come into a food bank, and it's not what people have in their minds. I mean, it is, but it's a lot broader than that. There's a lot more need than there's ever been before. We're seeing some days twice as many customers as we were before COVID. And so it's both shocking and also, really positive that we're able to serve so many people and keep that food going out the door.
Thank you so much for that. Anyone else would like to add?
I'll go. I think that, so I really appreciate this question. So there's a way in which we expect people so East African Community Services, you expect people that coming through our doors are East African, in our context, refugee, immigrant, and first gen, which is overwhelmingly true. But when it comes to the embarrassing American problem of food insecurity, and it is an embarrassment, a blight on our entire society, because we should know better, we should do better. We have found that everybody named Mama comes to our feeding programs. Chinese, Vietnamese, African American, West African, Arab. And I just think that is such a statement of need. And so we are known to serve a particular demographic, but when we have our food programs, we have, the drive-through model we created, it became problematic because we had lines going all the way back up around the corner in New Holly, and it causing some tension in the community because, the food need was that great. But I think that to echo what our brother Jefferson said, this problem is transracial, translinguistic, transcultural, transeconomic, and I think that what I'm hearing now, as I even look around the panel, is I'm wondering about opportunities for like East African to reach out to the other people on the panel and like thinking about how do we do better together. So yeah, it's just not one group. I love the fact most of our families are lower income, but the people who showed up, I had to really check myself to be fully transparent. I saw this dude pull up in a BMW. I'm like, and it's to your point, Jefferson, it's not upon us to make this judgments about who needs food. And I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Great. And I can attest to the line that was wrapped around the building because I was there on that day, on one of the days where they had a line wrapped around the building doing kind of a site visit. And so there is a huge need to just kind of speak to what Amir and Jefferson raised. And Srijan, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think the one thing I wanted to add was like food. When you think of food security, obviously we think of people needing food, and then as we talked about, it's transracial, trans demographics. It's like so many different things. And the other thing that also we find very interesting is like many people who come to our meal programs don't just come for the food, they come for the community. They come to break bread with other people, come to meet their friends. In fact, like just a few days back, we received, we got a donation letter from someone whose mom attends our senior meal program. And then she mentions like, she was like saying like with COVID, we had to stop many of her programs. One of the letters she mentioned like we need to start some of the other program because my mom loves those opportunities to connect with other people. Then she needs to do these other exercises, or she needs to talk to other people. When are you going to start them? Can you please start them? Can you have them eat together? So that's another aspect we find. And same with an East African meal program. When we during the COVID, for a while, we couldn't do gatherings, obviously, and we did deliveries, home deliveries, but we also found many people did not want deliveries. They were like, no, I don't want deliveries. I want to meet and eat together. I mean, delivery, although there was food, I mean, we were giving the food that they really needed, and they really came, and some people got it. But many people also were not as interested in getting the food delivered because that was not the experience they're looking for. They were looking for to meet and eat with other people as a community. And that's something that, especially for the East African program, we found that it just didn't work. When we had a meal program and we had the to-go option, very few people came. As soon as we said, okay, let's eat together, and there's so many more people who are more interested. So that's, I think, is another important part of the food insecurity aspect. It's just not about food, it's also about the community.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And speaking of community, volunteers make up the community. So tell us, in what ways have volunteers impacted your programs? Are there any stories of success? And I know, Jefferson, you shared a quote earlier today about one of your clients speaking to your volunteers. Anyone else? What impacts have you seen the volunteers that volunteers have made in your programs with the neighbors that you serve?
I think that with the East African community, I love this question again. I think that there's, the work that volunteers do is multiple and numerous, but I think that there's a way in which I remember watching. So we're East African, overwhelmingly Muslim, and I remember I've been in East African approaching 6 years, and our volunteer base has always been overwhelmingly Jewish young kids. And so I know, surprise, right? And there's something very cathartic and very healing about this in terms of the ways in which people coming together of goodwill and unity changes the narrative. There's the intergenerational Palestine-Israel issue that weighs on the hearts of many people in our communities, but the ways in which East African Community Services as an organization brings in people who are diverse, including our Jewish brothers and sisters, it resonates very deeply in my soul in terms of the way we create the beloved community and the way that we create, we live out Dr. Martin Luther King's admonishments around the human family. And so what I have noticed consistently is the way in which we are breaking cultural and even linguistic barriers down by bringing diverse people together in our volunteer pool. Even when you see people who are struggling to talk to each other because they do not speak the same languages, but they're still trying, and there's this love, there's this love as a foundation and the base that it is a delight for me to see it.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
I would just add, the food is something that unites people in a different way than, we live in a very divided country right now, as everyone on this call knows. But our volunteers come from all sorts of backgrounds, political, religious, et cetera, and they're all working together for the same goal, which is to feed the community. And it's really beautiful to see because, granted, they probably don't want to talk politics all the time, but we're all in the same mission, which is to take care of our neighbors, and food brings people together in a really unique way.
Yeah, I think, same. That's not a whole lot to add, but again, we have so many stories, similar stories with like people who volunteer, and many people start volunteering with a specific idea that, okay, I'll manage to volunteer in the kitchen, and then they soon find out, oh, and there is this, and then there is this, and they get connected to the program. I know we have one person who said, oh, I'll just come over to do some serving meals, and then almost a few years later, she's like almost like working. I don't know if I can say even volunteering. She's like volunteering 3 days a week, like every day for over a decade. And then suddenly, then she had some health troubles. She had some health issues, and then she had to take a leave. And she's now, I can't wait to come back. And she's now back on a wheelchair. Like, I just have to be back. It just feels so good to be here, to be with others, to be with people. So it just, and then other thing that we specifically have focused on, because of our some different specific connections, like we wanted to work with volunteers with disabilities. So we actually partner with many organizations like Work Opportunities, Prevail, Cares of Washington, and other organizations who they work with people with different levels of ability, and then we try to match different tasks at our organization to see what different people can do. They often come with their job coaches, or sometimes they come with another caregiver, and they will do something. And we have heard again and again that one of the things that they love most is the task itself is not as important, but the most important thing that they feel that they are doing something. There is a usefulness, like that they are contributing to the whole aspect of feeding other people, and they feel connected with other people in the same way. So we kind of providing an opportunity for to volunteer, to come to give back to the community in a dignified way is something that we have seen. Like, many people have gone through our doors, but some people keep coming back, and some of the people, they are good at remembering birthdays, and they will, as one person who will always give every staff a birthday card every time, because that person remembers everyone's birthday. So it's just a pleasure to have so many different kinds of volunteers.
Yeah, volunteers, they extend the family of the organization and make the neighbors feel that much more welcome into the space. And so I love that. Thank you all for sharing that, because volunteers are very valuable. And so as the final question, before we go to the questions from the chat, and again, if any of you have questions that you would like to ask the panel, please place them in the chat, and then we will address them at the end. So my last question, I want to speak to the need. So has the need changed? Have you seen a change in your volunteers since the pandemic? Drop, decline, increase? And what is that need? Is there a particular day of the week that you would like more volunteers, that you would need more volunteers, so that we can share that with the group, and we know that they can get more information on your website later? But if there is a particular day or a particular opportunity that you see is a greater need, please share that with the audience, so that as they're thinking about ways to get plugged in, they'll know what would be most helpful to the organizations. And anyone can start.
I can
Go ahead.
Jefferson, go for it.
Well, the need is, as I mentioned earlier, where some days we're seeing twice as many folks as we were in 2019. I just got some stats from our volunteer manager, but we have a lot more volunteers coming out of the woodwork too, since COVID, because people recognize this is a high level of need. But just some examples. In 2021, we had 398 volunteer applications. In 2022 is 558. So, that was a big increase. And, we had 631 unique volunteers last year. That's a ton of work that we need help with. And that, the work wouldn't have gotten done without all of those volunteers. So it's truly, we both rely and depend upon our volunteers to feed our community. For us in particular, one of the areas that we get about 20% of our food from grocery rescue. So we have partnerships with local grocery stores, PCC, Whole Foods, QFC, Safeway. And every day we're going out every morning to pick up those foods. And those are some of the treasured items for our customers, because, the deli at PCC, we're getting all the salads and sandwiches, and, staff and volunteers and everybody is excited when that comes in every week, because it's, you know, part of there's enough food for everyone that as we all know in this room, it's not a lack of food, it's how it's distributed. So if there's those shifts are, you know, every day in the mornings, 9 to 11 a.m. Or during the week. And, you know, I think one of the questions that we didn't get to is just about weekend opportunities. And for us, a lot of that happens. We don't have currently food bank hours, but in particular in the summertime, when we have a lot of special events we want to table at, we want to have a presence in the community, and some of the gleaning programs where we're working with some of the farmers markets and stuff that operate on the weekends. We definitely need some weekend volunteers for those opportunities. But yeah, grocery rescue is a big need, and the weekend as well.
Right, thank you for that.
Yeah, this is no surprise that the need is higher than before, as everyone has attested. Like for our senior meals, our biggest day used to be pre-pandemic. Our biggest day used to be like Thanksgiving meal, and we'll have 110 people at the meal program. And now we serve like more than 200 every day, every time we have a meal program. So it's just the regular number has just gone up so much. And we have seen that kind of across programs. There are some changes here and there, but in generally, it has definitely gone up. We typically do not work on weekends, so we do not have many weekend volunteer opportunities, unfortunately. Most of our opportunities are during the day, during the weekday, during the day, some in the evening, which people can come after work. But I also realize, like with virtual work, for many people, like people's days are often have opened up, not unlike it was before pandemic, right? I think the most valuable for us is some kind of a regular commitment as opposed to one time, because obviously, especially if you're doing volunteering, it's a lot about our volunteering is not just about doing the work, as we all mentioned, right? It's about kind of building the community. It's kind of building those relationships, getting to know the people in the kitchen. There's a community in the kitchen. There is a community of volunteers. There's a community of people we work with. So it just makes it a lot more. It's better for us, better experience for us, better experience for the people that we can provide is when people can kind of commit on some kind of a regular interval. I also want to throw out, although this has not been mentioned, like board members are also volunteers. So if anyone of you are interested in becoming a board member, that's also another opportunity for sure, which is obviously crosses daytime, evening, weekends, etc. And in terms of what changes we have seen, I think the numbers, as we know, obviously during the COVID, we couldn't host many volunteers, but as we are the other thing that we are seeing, I think it's generally a trend I am observing across not just about him, but across the food security area. I think just generally the understanding of volunteers of what is okay to, how it's okay to support and how it is not. I think people are generally a lot more, I feel like our volunteers are nowadays, we get a lot more, they understand a lot more like what kind of food we need, like the concept of appropriate food has been come into this lingo, right? It has become a lot more mainstream. It has the serving people with dignity and serving people with food that not the leftover food, so to speak, or not that we are not using, but the serving people the best food that we can providing. I think that concept, I think, has generally gone up over the years. I think to me I think I see that change in our volunteers. In like one way, like one of our founders had mentioned, the food that we would like to eat, but we're serving the food that's even better than what we would eat, because many of the people that we serve food than what we would be doing, because if we have been generally well fed. So just kind of keeping that bar has to be very high, like what we're feeding people. I think that has kind of gone a little more in. I feel like volunteers understand that more than it to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. That it hasn't been just about the numbers and the folks. It's also about the quality of the food that you've seen increase over the time. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And then last but not least, Amir, what are some of the needs and changes that you also, I know you spoke to this early on, how the organization had to make some pivots in order to accommodate the need, but speak to an area where volunteers can be most helpful at East African Community Services.
Thank you for this this platform. And so we had to shift because the New Holly campus is not just East African, right? So, I mean, the traffic was, you've seen it, the traffic was and has been insane. The traffic has been insane at our Seattle SeaTac Community Center. And it's, with respect, it's disrupting insofar as we are not an island unto ourselves. And so we pivoted to partnering with United Way to do deliveries of our of stuff. And also, I want to just be transparent that we have been, for 21 years, East Africa's been doing a lot. But in terms of food, there are people on the panel who have an expertise that exponentially exceeds our expertise. We're sort of new to this. Is not a core thing that we've been doing for decades. And so we are open to the expertise of volunteers, technical volunteers that can come in and help us think about what we don't know. So we're open to learning. And doing it better because, and you know, we serve disproportionately lower income folk who are at the federal poverty line, and so the food, the food instability issue is significant. So you don't know what you don't know, and so thinking about how volunteers who have experience can come help us as well, not just serving food, but there's multiple ways of doing volunteering. So you can be what we call at East Africa, we have this label we call a core volunteer, which is a subject matter expert. And so you can come with the experience that we don't have, and you know what we don't know as it relates to this, the fight for food security. So I would just say that we have a very, very limited pool of very limited amount of people that can be served by home deliveries. And so we're open to thinking about what other ways can we augment this, because there's hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of people in this immediate area in these communities near our SeaTac campus that need food. And we are crippled by the extent that we live in a campus that we cannot take over all of the space because it's not just us. Does that make sense? So we're open to what we don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one of the things too, to speak to some of the areas that you all have been doing this work for a long time, I believe you have a very robust summer program with the youth that really helps them to build their skills. And so that's also an opportunity, not only just food, but working with some of the youth in the summer programs. And then providing the expertise, as Amir mentioned, and being on the board. So as you can see, audience, there are so many volunteer opportunities and a variety of volunteer opportunities that you can get plugged into just from these three. And there are also additional volunteer opportunities on our website, on United Way's Volunteer Connect portal as well. And so with that, let's turn it over to Alexia to ask any questions that we have in the chat, if there are any.
All right.
One last thing, if
Now-
I could,
now is
if
your
I could,
go for it, Amir.
I'm so sorry, I just realized, I thought this was food-specific volunteer engagement. I feel so silly. So East African Community Services, really briefly, hundreds upon hundreds, I think our numbers have hit historic levels now. Annually, what we call our ecosystem of programs, we serve more than 400 kids across our multiple campuses. We have an after-school, a summer program. We have an innovative program in partnership with Boeing called Math, Code, and Robotics that prepares East African kids for STEM careers. So we're open to STEM volunteers. We have girls and boys mentorship programs, Young Men Lead and Strong Girls Powerful Leaders. So we are a community serving organization. So we have so many different areas that could use your expertise, volunteers. Administration help, youth and mentorship help, culturally appropriate context, food, expanding our capacity to think bigger about this the fight against food injustice. Our Parent Leadership Training Institute, if you work in education or you have experience in helping immigrant parents to acclimate to American life, there's so much that East African welcomes you into our homes to help us with. We don't have all the answers. We're not pretentious. We're open to learning, and our volunteers are subject matter experts oftentimes, and they certainly bring their full heart to the table. So wanted to just put that into context. And we have centers in Seattle and SeaTech. So come on.
Thank you so much, Amir. And one of the things that I learned, and sometimes food and serving meals, as Sri John mentioned, and also helping out in the market at White Center, that is just an entry point into the organization. There are so many other opportunities for you to get plugged in and to stay connected, hopefully on a consistent basis, because as Sri John mentioned, and I would say that Amir and Jefferson would agree that having those consistent volunteers, again, helps to provide that welcoming space for the neighbors as they're coming in to receive some of the services. And so Alexia has placed the information on the website for volunteer opportunities, and then also the websites for our panelists here. And I don't think there are any questions that are in the chat, but if anyone wants to unmute potentially and ask a question, feel free to do so.
Hi, my name's Esther, and I oversee an alumni group who does volunteer activities, and sometimes it's hard for us to find group activity opportunities. So could you speak to whether or not you prefer individuals or you're willing to take groups of like 10 to 15?
We definitely can do large group. 10 to 15 is probably the max. One of the things I forgot to mention, actually, I'm glad I have a moment to speak to it, but we're moving. We're launching a capital campaign to have a new food bank here in downtown White Center. So really exciting. In the next, in the next year, we'll be in a new home, but we're bursting at the seams here. So we can host probably about 10, 12 people max, but happily to do that. Generally those are during the week, but during the summertime, we have a lot of garden projects that we could definitely use large groups for, and that could be even more. That could be 15, 20 people.
Right. And Amir, I saw you getting excited about the groups. Would you like to speak to that, having groups to serve with you?
So I just think back to the moment when we partnered with the City of Seattle Department of Transportation, and we gave away 100 bikes to kids in the New Holly neighborhood. And the group, what made that even possible, because we have to assemble the bikes too, by the way. Oh my God, what a nightmare. That was a logistical experience. One for the bucket list. In the summer in particular, we have at least 140 kids in our summer program, but so we can use large groups, again, about 10 or so sounds about right. But with enough warning. So just really engaging with folk. Summer is the best, but we have an ecosystem of programs that I talked about that touches everything. And as we reimagine how to expand the food program, sounds like we need to reach out to Jefferson. Actually, I'm going to talk to you, brother, later, because we just don't have enough food and the demand is insane. And so thinking about in that context, 10 or, collaborating with others to figure out, how do we do food better, because the demand far outpaces our current capacity.
Awesome. I love that. Collaboration, connection. And Sri John, what about you?
We do. I think we do have more limited group volunteering opportunities, not as many, but yeah, again, 10 to 15 is probably the max we can have. We have a few ongoing ones that we can sign up for. So there are opportunities for sure. But even with group, I mean, sometimes we prefer at least having some recurring volunteers within the group actually sometimes helps. But yeah, we do have some group opportunities, but I would say comparatively potentially less than other organizations. Because again, for one of the reasons is like we have a dedicated set of regular volunteers who come prepare our meals on serving our meals, so that we don't want to take them out typically, and we can always use a few more. But when there is a big group comes in, then that kind of changes our plan a little bit. So but there are opportunities that we can use big groups for.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions?
Looks like there are a couple in the chat, Erica. One about suggestions for getting involved in food rescue besides through existing food banks.
That's a good question. I think, you know, during the summertime, some of the, you know, if you see neighbors with a bunch of apples on their tree, they're probably not going to like them. A lot of that stuff goes to waste in our, the Northwest. A lot of people do a lot of home gardening. And so if you have neighbors like that, that's a great way to just bring a box of apples or something in for us. You know, a lot of times because of food safety, it's important if you're collecting things from a grocery store, things like that. Temperatures are important. We want to make sure that we're giving healthy, safe food out to our customers. So it's important to kind of coordinate with your local food bank in terms of that, to make sure that they're ready for it and it doesn't sit outside or things like that, in particular for prepared foods. And I would say, you know, we get a ton of food drives November, December around the holidays, and people are thinking about it. But you know, April, May, like food drives, off schedule food drives are awesome, and you can do that at your workplace, at your schools, at your kids' schools. Get the kids involved. That's always great. So, you know, that's something that, you know, we have all these donation barrels that go out to the community in November, December, and they're just sitting here for most of the year until then. So we'd love to get those out to businesses or schools or things like that to help raise food for us.
Great. Anyone else want to add to that? Or Alexia, if there's another question, we can take that question.
Another question in the chat was looking for a little bit more information about those gleaning volunteer roles, how it works. Do you sign up for stores in your area and then drive and deliver the supplies? Just sort of a little bit more of a picture of what that could look like.
That's you, Jeff. Is it?
Yeah.
That's you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I think again, coordinating with our operations folks that about, you know, making sure that the food doesn't, you know, if you go through all the trouble of collecting food for us and then nobody's here to put it in the fridge, et cetera, then we don't want to waste anybody's time. So happy to talk more about that and connect you with our operations folks that can really dive into what's possible. Yeah.
Great.
And I think I saw you put your email in the chat as well. So
I did. Yeah.
Folks can find you that way. And then Carrie asked if there were any recruiting flyers that we can put up in our buildings around the neighborhood.
We definitely have our volunteer manager has created a flyer that kind of talks through the different opportunities from working in the warehouse or the grocery store or grocery rescue, things like that. I'd be happy to maybe send that to Erica. Okay. So I'll send that along.
Same here. I can share it with Erica, and maybe Erica can share it with others. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll send out a little summary of these resources and links as well after this session later today or tomorrow, as we get those materials for folks to refer back to later. I think that question also to me points to sort of what we were talking about before, where it's like there's a lot of ways that you can lend your time and talents to these organizations and communities, even if it is, including things like helping to get the word out and helping to sort of grow that volunteer pool through some outreach of your own. And then Margaret, I see your question about an organization like United Way in Snohomish County, and there is a United Way of Snohomish County, though their programming might look a little bit different than ours here in King County. Leanne put the link in the chat. Thanks, Leanne. And Erica, I don't know if you have anything that you've come across in your work, just as far as sort of what the hunger work looks like up north.
I don't have anything top of mind regarding Snohomish County, but I do know we provide some delivery services and work with a couple of food banks there in the county, and work with them to for our home grocery delivery program. And so I can share additional information with, and I can put my email in the chat as well. And so if you would like to follow up to ask questions regarding that, I will be happy to provide additional details. Okay, any other questions in the last 7 minutes? Okay, well, thank you all. Thank you so much to our panelists for your time and sharing this information with our eager audience members on the call here that are ready to dig in and to volunteer to serve the communities that you spoke of. We really appreciate your time and want to continue to work together and to collaborate to build the beloved community that Dr. Keene spoke of. So thank you all for your time, and look forward to seeing you all volunteer around the community. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.